Hello and welcome. Happy Friday to everyone, all my homies in the chat. If you want to join everyone in the chat, you have to do it on Rumble. Rumble.com/Hayley is the only place you can watch Nightly Scroll in full. You might be watching on X or Facebook right now. Welcome. But if you want to join us and join all of my homies, join us on Rumble. Of course, you can catch this stream on Rumble later on. You don't have to catch us live at 6 whenever you want to watch or listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please do so. Of course, you can follow me at Hayley Caronia on all platforms. Welcome to Nightly Scroll. Charlie Kirk's assassin has been caught as of last night. We're going to get into all the details. Put your phones on Do Not Disturb. Nightly Scroll starts now. Is when the FBI got Charlie Kirk's assassin, and President Trump was on Fox and Friends first this morning to announce it. Here's what he said. Watch.
Essentially went to the father, went to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic, by the way, and the person was involved with law enforcement, but was a person of faith, a minister, and brought him to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic, and the father convinced the son, this is it. And again, I'm always subject to be corrected, but you know, I'm just giving you, based on what I'm hearing, they'll give you a much more active. I just heard about it 5 minutes before I walked in. As I'm walking in, they said, looking real good. They have the person that they wanted. So you have breaking news, don't you? Huh?
Thank you.
You always have.
So the FBI held a press conference earlier this morning with FBI Director Kash Patel, Utah Governor Spencer Cox, and other members of law enforcement, where they provided some pertinent information about the assassin. As you know, I have a standing rule on this show. I do not share the names of criminals, of killers. I am not sharing any more photos. He is caught. And now I want him to rot in prison, and then I want him to rot in hell. It is actually sickening to see his name everywhere. We cannot make these people into celebrities. I know why law enforcement released his name, of course, but I will not be a part of the media machine that repeats his name over and over and over again. So here is what we learned from the presser. He is 22 years old. He was not a student at Utah Valley University. He is a third-year student in the electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College in St. George, Utah. He was living at home with his parents. His father is a former sheriff's deputy of 27 years. Now, after the FBI put out that photo yesterday, the photos and videos of the killer, this guy's father identified him from those surveillance photos. And his father, like President Trump was explaining in that clip, told his son to turn himself in. And he didn't. Apparently, the killer told his dad that he would rather commit suicide than surrender. And his father called a local youth pastor, someone who they are friendly with. The pastor called the U.S. Marshal, who took him into custody. Now, other information that we've learned from the presser earlier is that he changed clothes on the roof before fleeing on foot. It was also first reported by Steven Crowder yesterday that the casings were engraved with transgender and anti-fascist messaging. And now, thanks to the FBI and this presser, we have more details as to what those engravings said. The first casing said, notices bulge, OWO, what's this? Another casing said, hey, fascist, catch, with an arrow pointing up and then 3 arrows pointing down. Another casing had, oh, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao, Ciao. This is lyrics from a World War II era anti-fascist Italian song. Another one read, if you read this, you are gay, LMAO. Now, leftists have been claiming, oh, well, he was Republican. You know, they go down this narrative. They go down the white man, straight man, Republican man. That's not true. He was registered to vote, but unaffiliated with a party. Of course, with his father being a former sheriff, calling a pastor in a time of need, you can make assumptions about how they align politically and what values they brought this man up with, but we don't know for sure. There was a photo going around of the alleged killer back in 2017 on Halloween And he, those Halloween costumes where it looks like you're riding on a dinosaur. It looks like you're riding on something. He had one of those, but it was like he was riding on Trump's back and Trump's face was green. It was certainly derogatory. I don't think this kid was a MAGA Republican by any means. I've also never met a Republican that would scrawl, "Hey, fascist," catch on a bullet and then kill one of their political opponents or someone that they disagreed with. No Republican I know would do something like that. But it does raise the question, if he was raised in a loving home, if he was raised with conservative values, Christian values, how does something like this happen? How are kids being radicalized while they're living under their seemingly loving parents' roofs? Was he radicalized in college? Was he radicalized by some of his peers? Was he radicalized online? Is it a combination of all three of these things? Probably. From this FBI presser, we know that he was communicating with his roommate on Discord about the killing and his plans. The content of these messages, they were saying in this presser that this was a contact. They've matched the photo. They've matched the contact as someone with the first name of the killer. And the person that they believe to be the killer was texting with his roommate about, needing to get a rifle from a drop point. He was texting his roommate about leaving the rifle in a bush. He was talking about watching the area where the rifle was left. He also was texting about wrapping the rifle in a towel. He was texting about the engraving the bullets. So knowing that he was texting one of his friends, his roommate, about this plan means that this man was not acting alone. Now, from this presser earlier today, one of the members of the media asked Governor Cox, "Are you going to make any more arrests?" And they said no. They don't believe that any more arrests are going to be made at this time, but also insinuated that the investigation is ongoing. So that doesn't mean that no one else will be arrested. But in my opinion, and I'm not law enforcement and I'm not an expert, so this is just my civilian opinion, if he was texting with his roommate, the roommate needs to be called in for questioning. The roommate needs to be potentially investigated as an accessory to murder. He was texting him about needing to pick up the gun. Did he need his friend, his roommate, to pick up the gun on his behalf? Or even if he was just texting his roommate about needing to do this, the roommate could have said something, right? I'm not saying that the roommate could have stopped it because we don't know if that's true, but certainly we have to hold our friends and our inner circle accountable, right? Because not everyone is an evil killer, but these evil killers have friendships, they have family members, they have acquaintances. And this evil in our society runs deeper than just the killers. It exists in their inner circles who enable them as well. How can you not get help or call for help when your friend is messaging you about a drop-off location for a rifle? In my opinion, that person could have done something in that moment and they didn't. So are they complicit? Do they also believe in this killer's mentality? Did the roommate also want his friend to go through with this political assassination? We have to take care of our friends. You have to check in on your friends, your family members, but also be strong enough to hold them accountable when they are planning to kill someone. Now, according to this presser earlier today, they cannot answer whether or not this killer had a specific motive, but the family said that he had gotten more political in recent years, that he hated Charlie Kirk, and was even speaking to a family member at a recent family gathering about Charlie Kirk and how much they hated him. So the family member also was saying how much they did not like Kirk and what he was saying. They said he was full of hate and spreading hate, which is why facts matter. This is why Charlie Kirk coming to campuses and having conversations with people on both sides of the political aisle was so important. Now, this is another detail from the presser earlier today that I found interesting. Now, last night it was reported that Utah was already filing the paperwork for the death penalty. This was before they even had the guy, but they said, whoever the guy is, when we get him, we will go through with the death penalty. That is what was said last night. Now, at the presser this morning, Governor Cox said it's going to take 3 days for the charging documents to be filed. But he also said this. He said he was working with Erica, Charlie Kirk's wife, and the Kirk family to make the decisions on sentencing. They were going to be involved in this. I think that's interesting because Utah came out, said, we're considering the death penalty here. Then it almost seemed like kind of not a backtrack, but we're going to be working with the Kirk family on their wishes and what they want. To me, this signals that maybe it was Erica, who is a God-fearing woman. Maybe she has an issue with the death penalty. Maybe she doesn't want this man to die. As much as so many of us were so angry, right? We've seen someone who was a larger-than-life figure in this conservative movement be taken from us far too soon, far too young. And a lot of us are riled up. We want justice for Charlie. We want justice for his family. And we want to see this disgusting individual who killed him be held accountable. And, you know, the death penalty is something that I have said many times on this show that I'm wishy-washy on this. There are many opinions that I hold very strongly, and you will know that. But I also think I should be honest when I'm kind of in the middle of something. And I want to let you guys behind the curtain and know that I don't know exactly where I stand on the death penalty. At some points I say, yes, take this person off this earth. Why would we? He's so disgusting and horrible, a killer. Why would we, the taxpayer, pay to keep him alive, breathing and eating and sleeping and keep a roof over his head? Like, that exists in me. That anger exists in me. Then on the other side, I struggle with it because I'm pro-life, and I have gotten more pro-life as I've gotten older, as I've done more research. And now I don't know if we should play God and kill people. I struggle with this. So I'm just being honest about where I stand. And I think in being honest about where I stand on this, I'm open to having my mind changed. And that's where I stand on this. So I don't know where Erica stands on this. I don't know where the Kirk family stands on this, but it makes sense that the government, the Utah government, would bring them in on this decision because it is a difficult one. And whatever the decision is, I'm glad that the Kirk family will be the one to make it and they will be involved in that process. But I was impressed by Utah Governor Cox earlier today. I wanted to just play a little bit of his words during this presser earlier today, if we could play that.
I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere. And every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us. We get to make decisions. We have our agency. And I desperately call on every American, Republican, Democrat, liberal, progressive, conservative, MAGA, all of us to please, please, please follow what Charlie taught me. I'll just conclude with words I share often from a friend and author, Yuval Levin, who was asked if he was optimistic about our country. And he said, I'm not optimistic. He said, I hate optimism. Like, that sounds bad. But he said, optimism is a vice. It's this idea that good things are just going to happen. And he said, in the history of the world, good things have never just happened. He says, I'm not optimistic, but I am hopeful. And hope is the virtue that sits between the vices of optimism and pessimism. Hope is the idea that good things are going to happen because we can make them so. I still believe in our country. And I know Charlie Kirk believed in our country. I still believe that there is more good among us than evil. And I still believe that we can change the course of history. I'm hopeful because Americans can make it so.
I agreed with everything in that statement. I was pretty impressed with that. And I posted on X that this morning because he was doing this speech and I thought, all I said was, wow, I'm impressed with this. And I found it interesting. A lot of people were agreeing with me. And then some people were saying, do your research before you praise this guy. He's a rhino, blah, blah, blah. All I said was I was impressed with the speech. Again, like, this just speaks to the issue that we have in this country. Like, I didn't say I wanted the guy to run for president. I didn't say I believed in everything he believed in. I didn't say his policy record was perfect or anything like that. I just said I liked this clip. That's it. We need to be able to say that. Even on people on our own side that we disagree with, even people on the other side that we disagree with, we have to be able to just say, like, I liked this. This was good. Thank you for saying this. And what he was saying was that what we saw happen to Charlie Kirk yesterday was an attack on the American experiment, an attack on our ideals. And what he said and warned was we can't let this keep us from speaking our minds. And I thought that what he said was perfectly articulate and just a great message. And that's all. And he also said, by the way, because at the end of that presser, he was taking questions and one of the reporters asked him something. I forgot what it was. And he said that people need to touch grass and get off social media. He said that social media is a cancer and to go connect with family members. And I agree. As someone who spends an average of 14 hours a day on her phone, I totally agree. I will say most of my friends don't live by me anymore, so I do have to connect with my friends through this little box. But I agree that human connection is so important. And it's so easy to get caught up in all of the horrible things that we see on social media and all the horrific videos and horrific headlines. And sometimes we get caught up in that, and we should look up long enough to see the wonderful things that are happening around us. However, I want to get into, I know we've been covering this all week, but some of the media reaction to this has just been tone deaf, brain dead, and the Rolling Stone is no exception. The Rolling Stone put out this post on X saying, the MAGA right says Charlie Kirk is a martyr for freedom of expression, but still want people to lose their jobs for criticizing his rhetoric. This is all stemming from the fact that there are many people in the conservative movement who have seen these videos of leftists celebrating Charlie Kirk's death online, they have gone to those social media profiles, figured out where these people work, and have called their employers to let them know that these people have been celebrating death on the internet. And then it is up to the employers whether or not they want these people to still be employed at their company. And a lot of these employers are coming to the realization that no, they do not want these people employed at their companies, so they are getting fired. And Rolling Stone then saying there that MAGA wants people fired for criticizing Charlie Kirk. No, they are wrong. The MAGA right does not want people to lose their jobs because they criticized Charlie's rhetoric. That is encouraged under the Constitution. Charlie would have encouraged that. That's what he stood for. And conservatives will defend the right, by the way, for leftists to hate us and to voice those opinions. What's not okay is people celebrating and rejoicing the death of a political figure, or anyone for that matter, a fellow human being. And if employers are made aware of this kind of behavior and no longer want to employ that person, that is what we call FAFO. And this is another topic that I am a little torn on because I hate cancel culture. You know where I stand on cancel culture. I hate doxing. And I feel like this is what the left would do. Because remember, the left used to do this. They would figure out if someone had a MAGA hat or they were a Trump supporter online, and then they would go call their employer and get them fired. I didn't agree with that. But this is also much different. This isn't just doxing someone because you disagree. This is doxing someone and alerting their employer because they are cheering on someone's death. And free speech does not mean free of consequences. Now, the media and public figures have been totally stepping in it. Erin Burnett on CNN said this. Watch.
Out front next, the breaking news, a frantic manhunt for Charlie Kirk's killer, nearly 30 hours on the run. How did the shooter make a getaway? There are new clues tonight, big developments in the manhunt as we understand it at this moment. And an eyewitness who asked Kirk a question moments before he was shot and killed joins us. What he saw and heard in those seconds leading up to the murder. And warning, it's about to get a lot worse in this country. That is a chilling threat from some of MAGA's youngest and most passionate members tonight. Let's go out front. And good evening, I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, the breaking news, a massive manhunt for the killer who assassinated Trump ally Charlie.
It's interesting how she's saying these far-right people are saying that they are posing a threat, that young MAGA members are, we have something else coming. We should be afraid of them. No, we should not be afraid. What's happening is young people waking up to the fact that a public figure that they looked up to and that represented civil discourse in this country was just killed. That is why they are upset, and they are rightfully upset. But it is no reason to be threatened. They are not posing a threat to anyone, but they are rightfully upset that someone that they looked up to is now dead. And it's not just CNN, but Democrat lawmakers trying to make Republicans and conservatives out to be violent, saying that President Trump's rhetoric is the problem, and we as a party, as a collective, need to tamp down on the rhetoric. How can they be so blind? How could they be so blind to the fact that calling people Hitler and fascists and Nazis has consequences? And at the tippy top of the Democrat Party, then President Joe Biden has called President Trump a threat to democracy many times. Sitting Vice President Kamala Harris, then sitting Vice President, called President Trump a fascist. Democrats, sitting officials, elected officials have called President Trump an evil dictator. How can they be surprised when people want him dead and then they want his friends and his supporters dead? You can't. You cannot feign ignorance. They have to own their part in this and vow to be better moving forward. The worst that we do on the right is call the left idiots, because they are, and crazy, because they are. But our language does not incite political violence. We do not make them out to be dictators, evil. We are not the same. Now, the New York Times issued a correction on one of their articles saying, originally they were saying that Charlie Kirk was this like anti-Semitic figure, and then they put out this just lazy statement at the end saying that, oops, sorry, we didn't mean to do that. This was not a mistake. This is a news organization that put out misinformation about Charlie Kirk and then buried the correction. The media is partly the reason why Charlie was hated so much, because he was painted to be something that he is not in life and still in death. Someone else who fell for this, Stephen King. Can we pull up Stephen King's post? I apologize. He had been spending a lot of time saying Charlie Kirk was an advocate for stoning gays. All these things, and which is not true. So after many people on the conservative right pointed this mistake out to Stephen King, he put out this post on X saying, I apologize for saying Charlie Kirk advocated stoning gays. What he actually demonstrated was how people cherry pick biblical passages. So again, even in his apology for saying something so wrong and also so disgusting about a now dead person, he couldn't even finish that statement without another dig at Charlie Kirk. He is a reprehensible ghoul inside and out. And what I'm seeing the left twist the most is Charlie's stance on the Second Amendment. They have taken his words out of context, incorrectly claiming that Charlie has said that school shootings were worth it, or a few gun deaths were worth the cost of the Second Amendment. Many of Charlie's critics, by the way, don't care to understand his viewpoints at all. They just see him as a threat because they see the movement that he has created, and they're scared of that. And they just say that he's hateful because, they heard someone say that on the internet, probably CNN or MSNBC online, and nobody cares to do any research of their own. Here is Charlie Kirk's entire answer. This is the one that the left is freaking out about. This is the entire answer, not taken out of context. This is Charlie Kirk on the Second Amendment when he was saying that these deaths are worth the Second Amendment. Watch this.
How's it going, Charlie? I'm Austin. I just had a question related to Second Amendment rights. We saw the shooting that happened recently, and a lot of people are upset. But I'm seeing people argue for the other side that they want to take our Second Amendment rights away. How do we convince them that it's important to have the right to defend ourselves and all that good stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So I'm a big Second Amendment fan, but I think most politicians are cowards when it comes to defending why we have a Second Amendment. This is why I would not be a good politician, or maybe I would, I don't know, but because I actually speak my mind. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. I love hunting. The Second Amendment is not even about personal defense. That is important. The Second Amendment is there, God forbid, so that you can defend yourself against a tyrannical government.
Yep.
Come on.
And if that talk scares you, wow, that's radical, Charlie. I don't know about that. Well, then you have not really read any of the literature of our founding fathers.
Yep.
Number two, you've not read any 20th century history. You're just living in Narnia. By the way, if you were actually living in Narnia, you would be wiser than wherever you're living, because C.S. Lewis was really smart. So I don't know what alternative universe you're living in.
Yep.
You just don't want to face reality that governments tend to get tyrannical, and that if people need an ability to protect themselves and their communities and their families. Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price. And that is part of liberty.
Wow.
Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. Wow. That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. Wow. So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, by having more armed guards in front of schools. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. So then how do you reduce? Very simple. People say, oh, Charlie, how do you stop school shootings? I don't know. How did we stop shootings at baseball games? Because we have armed guards outside of baseball games. That's why. How did we stop all the shootings at airports? We have armed guards outside of airports. How do we stop all the shootings at banks? We have armed guards outside of banks. How do we stop all the shootings at gun shows? Notice there's not a lot of mass shootings at gun shows. There's all these guns because everyone's armed.
True.
If our money and our sporting events and our airplanes have armed guards, why don't our children?
He is 100% correct. And the left is claiming that Charlie didn't care about children, he didn't care about school shootings, but his entire viewpoint is about the importance of protecting children and wondering why we don't. I agree with him. There needs to be armed guards at all of these hotspots, all of these gun-free zones, by the way. Schools, places of worship. I'm trying to think, nightclubs, at grocery stores, all of these places where we've seen mass shootings. Concert venues. Like, why not have armed guards? Why not? And what Charlie was saying there was, you can't get the gun deaths down to zero. If you have an armed society, it will never be zero. And that's kind of stupid to think that it would ever be the case. So, he's not saying that he wishes for people to die and that the 50,000 people who he wants 50,000 people to die in car accidents every year. No, he didn't say that. He doesn't want that to happen. He's saying it does happen. That's the difference that these leftists will never even attempt to understand. And it's also strange to me and also concerning that these leftists and these liberals, they disagree with the Second Amendment. But then they also think that we are living under a tyrannical government. So if they really understood what the Second Amendment was for, wouldn't they be all for it? If they really do believe that President Trump is Hitler, and they really do believe that he is mobilizing the military in cities and this is a government takeover, then why do they not understand the importance of the Second Amendment? Or maybe they do, and that's why they've tried to kill President Trump twice. I think most liberals misunderstand why people on the right have guns. Yes, of course, people like to hunt for sport, and there are also environmental benefits to that as well. People want firearms to defend themselves if needed, and they should. But I think the majority of the left doesn't understand that when we want to protect the Second Amendment, it is not because of the sport or even the self-defense, not because people collect them, but because if we actually had a government that was tyrannical in the way that lefties think that President Trump is, we would need those firearms to defend ourselves from that government, and we also need to defend every other right in the Constitution. Of course, I know, and I think deep down, that liberals know we are not at that point. President Trump is not a dictator. Our constitutional republic is intact, and they know that. They just want to have whatever stance is the opposite of President Trump's and his base without understanding the reasoning behind it. And that's really how most political differences are in this country. Agreeing for the most part, disagreeing on how we get to the solution. And when you do disagree, it's because no one even wants to listen to each other anymore. Everyone agrees that gun violence is bad. Everyone agrees that school shootings are horrific. But we have very different approaches to solving it. And that's why, really, it seems that no one cares. But that's why nothing ever gets done. It's not that people don't care. It's because we have to listen to each other long enough to work together to get something done. I want to take a quick break to tell you about Blackout Coffee. Let's talk about convenience without sacrificing quality. You already know I'm a fan of Blackout Coffee. I start every morning with it. I had 2 cups of Blackout Coffee today, actually. Their coffee pods are a total game changer. These aren't your average grocery store pods. Blackout pods are packed with fresh roasted bold coffee made right here in Florida, and they work fast with those single serve pod brewers. It is easy and it is delicious. I love it. If you love black coffee, they've got a great blend for you, different blends that you can try. They've got flavors if you like flavors. They've got like a Christmas cinnamon flavor. They've got like a cinnamon roll flavor, banana foster, vanilla, hazelnut. I mean, literally anything that you could think of. I was shocked at all the flavors that they have. So go check it out. It's none of that like bitter, stale junk. It's good coffee, bold, strong coffee. So just pop in one of those pods and you can have a great cup in just seconds. Whether you're running out the door, juggling kids, juggling back-to-back calls, Blackout is your new morning lifesaver. And the best part is they ship nationwide. So it doesn't matter where you live. You can have Florida fresh coffee at your door in just days. Head to blackoutcoffee.com/scroll for more. I was thinking about this, and I don't know if you guys remember this. Quick reminder that if you are watching on X or Facebook right now, goodbye. We have to finish the show on Rumble. So come on over to Rumble, rumble.com/Hayley. We'll bring you to the Bongino Report channel. That is where you can watch Nightly Scroll in full. So I will see you there. Do you guys remember? This is just like another trend that I've been seeing. Because, you know, we, especially a lot of us on the right, we have noticed that there's a lot of trans violence, right? And, you know, we notice a trend and it's not transphobic to notice a trend. That's just what's happening. Then we notice these trends, these black people killing white women on trains and killing them when they're walking their dogs. I mean, we've had so many horrific headlines this week. And again, it's not racist to point out that trend. But I noticed this today when we found out that Charlie Kirk's assassin was raised by a sheriff deputy. And I remembered back in April, another sheriff's son carried out a mass shooting in Tallahassee. If we could pull up that headline. But this is a trend that I'm, looking into. And I think it's not crazy to ask these questions, right? This was a deadly shooting at Florida State University back in April, on April 17th, and 2 people were killed, 6 were injured. So this guy was also raised by a police officer. He was the son of Leon County Sheriff Deputy Jessica Eichner. She was the suspect's stepmother, but it does just raise questions for me about how we can raise the next generation to be safe with firearms and to just be good and to use knowledge for good, to use firearms for good, just to be good and do good in the world. And I want to do a larger episode on this. I just have to find the right guest, but I want an expert of some sort. Maybe it's an expert in, I don't know. I have to think about like who the right person is, but I'm interested in how you can raise the next generation to be kind. And, how is it that a sheriff's deputy can raise someone who can go kill people? Like, why is that? How does that happen? Is it because they are rebelling against their parents? How do you make sure that you don't rebel against your parents? How do you make sure that when you take your kids to church, they don't rebel against you when they get older? Like, how do you do that, right? So I want to find the right guest, but these are questions that I have. And I feel like until I find the right guest, I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm not a parent, so I don't know how to parent. But I'm interested in knowing, and I think even people who are parents would be interested in knowing how their parenting styles can impact their children. And it's important to raise the next generation to be better than what we had. And I think it's also a reminder to be very involved in your kids' lives. Know if they are on Discord. Know if they are on 4chan. Know if they are on Reddit. know if they're listening to Charlie Kirk. I was shocked, actually, at all of these videos that I was seeing and posts on X of parents saying, I had no idea my son liked Charlie Kirk, but he's wearing a suit today to school with all of his friends and he impacted him so much. I mean, thank goodness that your son found Charlie Kirk and not some other crazy person to radicalize him on the left. But be present in your children's lives, Know if they are listening to Charlie Kirk, know who their heroes are. This goes for everyone. Be involved, know who they're listening to, know who they're hanging out with, know their influences, good and bad. I just think it's important to be involved, and I think there's a balance to strike between being a helicopter parent, because I think that that's bad also. I think you need to let kids grow up and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, but we can't let those mistakes be mass shootings, So I'm going to try to find a good guest on that, but I really do want to dive into that because I'm not an expert, so I have to find an expert to do that. So if you find that conversation interesting, someone in the chat said Dr. Phil. That's a great one. Maybe we can reach out to Dr. Phil. Something like that. Someone who has a background, like a medical background or something like that, because I find it's like a sociological background, I just need to find someone. But anyway, I would be remiss if I did not cover all of the other shootings that happened this week, right? Because we've been so focused on Charlie Kirk and other lives have been taken. And this has just become a massive issue in our country. And there was a shooting at Evergreen High School in Colorado on Wednesday. A 16-year-old student came to school with a firearm, wounded 2 classmates, and then killed himself. Like, this cannot keep happening. We have to find some solution for the mental health crisis in this country. And I do not want to infringe on our Second Amendment rights one bit. I do not. But we have to get firearms out of the hands of mentally ill children or violent children. We have to figure out why kids are violent and how to stop it, because it's an epidemic. There was also an active shooting at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland yesterday. A midshipman mistook law enforcement for an active shooter. There were unfounded rumors being spread that there was an active shooter on campus and that the active shooter was posing as law enforcement. So this midshipman saw a security guard, thought that it was a mass shooter or an active shooter, and hit that security guard in the head with his rifle, and then he was shot in the arm. So both of them are receiving treatment. It just goes to show the misinformation online, on these online chat rooms and things like that. If we could learn anything from Dan Bongino's hold rule, we really do need to heed that warning, right? That we do need to fact check everything that we find online, because not everything is truthful. Even with Charlie Kirk's assassination, there were videos of that older gentleman in the blue shirt that was held by law enforcement, and he was not the guy, right? But people were jumping on that. There was another guy in the crowd that people were focusing on, another guy that had a disagreement with Charlie Kirk. So people go down these internet rabbit holes and misinformation is spread. And I think this is a very good reminder to just hold, get all the information. You don't have to be first, but it's better to be right. And there was also an unconfirmed report of a shooting at UMass Boston yesterday. No injuries, thank goodness. But this is all horrific, right? People are on edge. There are very evil people living amongst us that need our prayers. And prayers are not enough, right? We need to also stay vigilant. And we learned that from my interview yesterday with Scott Bryson, who talks all the time about not being on high alert all the time, but you need to be on alert. You don't have to be paranoid. You don't have to go crazy, but you do have to be alert. You do have to take note of your surroundings and prepare yourself for an event like this, because they're more common than they should be. And it's better to be prepared than to be sorry. I want to cover some other stories quickly before we get into scrolling time. But Biden released an illegal immigrant, and he decapitated a man in Texas. This happened on Wednesday. And wow, I mean, this was just a headline that I missed throughout everything and figured it was worth sharing with all of you. This is an illegal immigrant. I can't play the video, by the way. And honestly, I don't encourage you to go watch the video. I'm just telling you, I came across the video before I came across the headline. The reason why I'm showing you the headline is because I can't in good faith show you this video of this man. It's one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. This illegal alien is from Cuba. He beheaded a man in front of the victim's wife and child. Then the illegal alien, he kicked the man's decapitated head like a soccer ball in the parking lot of this motel. The video is horrific. And he has a criminal history. Can you imagine it? I can. That's someone who is so disgustingly evil. Like, this is an animal. This is a demon. Someone who would decapitate someone and then kick their head. And he had a lengthy criminal history. He had been arrested for convictions for grand theft auto, grand theft motor vehicle, false imprisonment, carjacking, indecency with a child through sexual conduct. He was most recently in prison this January, but there were no removal flights to Cuba under the Biden administration. So he was in a detention center, not removed under the Biden administration. So he was allowed to stay. A woman and her child had to watch their loved one be decapitated by someone who was never supposed to be here, came here illegally, broke laws repeatedly, clearly was let off the hook, supposed to be removed, and wasn't because there were no removal flights. Isn't that funny how that works? How the Biden administration could figure out how to fly all them in here and not the other way around? Not when they are accused of and arrested for sex with a child, sexual harassment of a child, and carjacking and all these things. And now he was in here and able to decapitate someone. It breaks my heart and it blows my mind. Democrat policies. Breaks my heart, blows my mind. Now, President Trump announced also today on Fox and Friends First that he is ready to deploy troops to Memphis. Watch this.
I think maybe I'll be the first to say it right now again. We're going to Memphis. Memphis is
that's the next city.
Deeply troubled. And the mayor is happy. He's a Democrat mayor. The mayor is happy. And the governor, Tennessee, the governor is happy. Deeply troubled. We're going to fix that just like we did Washington. I would have preferred going to Chicago. I had a man in the head of a big railroad. They're doing a merger, and he wanted to come see me and all that stuff. And I asked him, because, it's one of the largest train companies, maybe the largest, so you can figure out who it is. Okay, Union Pacific. And he was in my office, and he started off 45 years ago with the railroad. It's such a great story. Sir, I'm a railroader. That's the kind of guy that should ride it, as opposed to a Wall Street guy that destroys the railroad, but he's good financially, right? And he was a very impressive guy. And I said, so what do you think? Where should we go next as a city? Because we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do a few at a time. But we're going to straighten out the crime in these cities. He said, sir, Memphis would be good because he's on the board of FedEx. He said, when I walk 1 block to my hotel, they won't allow me to do it. They put me in an armored vehicle with bulletproof glass to take me 1 block. He said, it's so terrible. I said, let me ask you a question. So we're going to Memphis. I'm just announcing that now, and we'll straighten that out.
National Guard?
The National Guard and anybody else we need. And by the way, we'll bring in the military, too, if we need it. But
Good. Keep it coming. This is what we voted for. We voted to make America safe again. We voted to make America great again. They go hand in hand. We can't have a great America if no one can walk around and feel safe. And it's not a red issue or a blue issue. It is everywhere. I mean, crime is everywhere. And I think this sets a great example that when President Trump wants to send troops to Chicago and they think they play politics and think this is about, President Trump embarrassing his political opponents, well, I think it does a little bit. I think he does want to do that a little bit. But it's also because the people of Chicago and people who live in inner cities across this country, in red states and blue states, don't want to live in squalor. They don't want to trip over homeless people. They don't want to scoop poop off of their porches. They don't want to step over needles when they're walking to work. They don't want to fear for their life. They do not want to walk around their city that they call home and have to look behind their back every 5 seconds. That is not making America great again. That is not making America safe again. That fixing those problems will do just that. And that's what President Trump wants to do. So I think by sending the National Guard to Memphis, it sends a message that he is not playing politics. He is making America great again. And he'll do it in blue cities too. And he'll also do it in red cities in red states. He will do it across this nation because that's what he was elected to do. Now, I want to get into scrolling time. I know we just have a few minutes left here. And if you're new to this show, you know that scrolling time is normally a ton of fun. And I haven't done scrolling time this week because of what has happened. Obviously, this has been a very heavy news week. And starting next week, I want to get back to normal. I want to post the fun content and I want to start, returning to normalcy. And before we do that, I want to pay one last scrolling time tribute to Charlie Kirk, because as I was scrolling through my timelines this week, it was impossible to not see Charlie's legacy. So many people who are political, apolitical, were touched by Charlie Kirk. And all of these videos just show that. I couldn't even really find another video to talk about if I wanted to. Everyone is talking about this, and I want to shed light on just what an amazing man Charlie Kirk was. So this first video is a man who was inspired by Charlie Kirk because he was nervous to speak out, but now he is not. Watch this.
My name is John. I have practically no online presence. And the reason for that is because I am scared to post things that I believe or really care about, because I worry about what people will think of me. I am worried about missing out on opportunities because of an online footprint. Yesterday, a man died. Presumably because he believed the same things that I believe in. I am a conservative, and more importantly, I'm a Christian. I believe wholeheartedly that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, that he died from our sins and rose again, and that he is God. I know that in the grand scheme of things, I don't really matter. No one knows or even cares who I am. But if there's even one person who sees this and gains the courage to speak up themselves, that's why I'm making this. Just so that everybody knows that we're not alone.
Isn't that amazing? He's not this huge personality. He doesn't want to get into politics in the way that maybe I do or some other people in this industry do. But he had enough courage because of Charlie to speak out because of Charlie, and to be bold in his conservatism, to be bold in his faith. That is Charlie Kirk's legacy. And I thought that was amazing to see. Here's another Democrat admitting that they are the worst based on this horrific display that we've seen with all of these liberals and leftists just celebrating his death. So here's someone waking up. Watch.
As a registered Democrat, all I have to say is the Charlie Kirk shooting just proves that we are the worst, man. My party is the fucking worst. I got people celebrating, hoping that he dies. Are we fucking for real right now? Where's the empathy? Where's the respect, man? It's disgusting. It's disgusting, truly. And the fact of the matter is this: he was a father, and whether or not I agree with his political opinions, all he truly wanted to do at the core was see this country be the best. And I can fucking respect that. And to see people just be blatantly disgusting, man, we're the worst, man. We're horrible.
I will say it was heartening to see Democrats come out and admit that they were disgusted by some of the behavior that we've seen coming from that side. And if we could pull up my comments here on my iPad, a lot of people were agreeing in the chat, saying, registered Democrat turned Republican because I finally did my research. You're a good person for calling it out. As a Republican, God bless. I will never vote Democrat again. Your party might be the worst, but not all people in the party are. You are obviously a good person. Stay good. Now, someone else said, never voted before, was never truly a Republican. Now I will vote in every election, small or large, red. Democrats gained no new followers today, but they lost plenty. I thought that comment said a lot. I mean, it has 14.2 thousand likes on it, but that's really telling. That's really telling, and it's probably true. I don't think anyone saw the acts of what happened on Wednesday and thought, yeah, I align with this. So they're right. The Democrats lost plenty of followers, but we did not. We gained some. So I thought that was pretty cool. Another video that I thought was awesome and gave me hope was someone saying that they can't wait for church this week. Watch this. It says, a week so sickening that I already can't wait for church on Sunday. And here are the comments from that video, also giving me so much hope. I haven't prayed or gone to church in almost 5 years. After everything that happened yesterday, I fell to my knees and I cried to God. I am going to a new church on Sunday and I am scared, but I am excited to see what this new chapter of my life will hold. May I be as bold in my faith as Charlie Kirk was. Amen. Let the revival come. These comments show how powerful Charlie's voice was. Even after his passing, he's still leading people to the Lord. This corrupt world did not deserve him, but he's now home. Someone said, something awoken in me spiritually. Charlie's passing was meant. Jesus used him. Look at all of us Christians coming together, mourning the death of a brother in Christ. Someone else said, this will be one of the first times I go to church in 5 years. My soul needs this. Wow. Someone said, I already know I'm going to bawl my eyes out at service. After this week, I'm going back for the first time in 4 years, a week that's made me want to start going to the church. I'm going back to church this Sunday, and I'm so excited. Someone else said, after his death, I realized that I am lukewarm. I am going to share the word with everyone I possibly can because I can feel it in my spirit that something is moving, and I just want everyone I love to be prepared. Again, I can't state enough how much hope I have in this next generation. I think Charlie Kirk was amazing. He was a gift to this movement. Thank goodness he started a movement. Thank goodness he wasn't just one person who didn't do anything. He did so much and he impacted so many people that he will live on. And that is so wonderful that people are going to church because of Charlie Kirk, and he inspired people in life and in death to be bold in their faith. So that is really wonderful. And the last video that I want to share is 16 here because Charlie was on a podcast called The Iced Coffee Hour. And this interview was on June 29th. And the host, Jack Selby, asked him how he wanted to be remembered. And it's odd hearing that question. And even Charlie was kind of taken aback by the question, you know, if I died. And it's kind of prophetic and a little eerie that he was asked this, but this is how Charlie wanted to be remembered. Watch.
If everything completely goes away, how do you want to be remembered?
I mean, if I die?
Everything just goes away. How would you if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith in my life.
I think he's going to get that wish, because not only are a lot of conservatives and Christians now emboldened in their faith because of Charlie, people who weren't going to church are going back to church, people who never went to church are going to go for the first time. And it's sad that he had to die for this to happen, but this was already in motion. Conservatives were already becoming more conservative thanks to Charlie, and more Christian because of Charlie. So I think he certainly got his wish, because he will be remembered for his faith. He will also be remembered for so much more than that. So on that note, I hope everyone goes to whichever place of worship they go to on Sunday, and I will see you right back here on Monday.